I'm seeing this stuff about Greenland and the German chancellor saying we might hold back some athletes, coming to World Cup. And you're like, oh, really? That's okay. Because Trump is now putting a 10% tariff on everybody in NATO. And people are saying, and this is logical, wait a minute, those are our allies. Listen. I think I understand what he's doing, and it is exactly what we have been begging someone to do. It's just happening at such a rapid pace, you can't get your arms around it. So let me go through what I think is happening, because I heard people say, Donald Trump, is he trying to get us into a war? Is he crazy? Is he just arrogant? The question is not whether his language offends our allies or unsettles markets or whether he's just arrogant or whatever. The question is, whether you like him or not, the question is this: what does a man do when he believes the world order is already collapsing and no one else is willing to admit it? And no one is standing up for his country. Because if you strip away all of the insults, all of the bluster, all of the tweets, you're not left with chaos. You're left with a pattern. And that's what I do best. I see patterns and I follow patterns. So hear me out on this. What if tariffs are not really about taxes or trade? What happens if peace deals aren't actually about peace? Pressure on Iran, Venezuela, the Middle East, and even Greenland. What happens if that's not what you think it is? Because they're not disconnected. They are moves on a board most leaders refuse to acknowledge even still exists. Because the board was taken away by Woodrow Wilson. Oh, I can't believe I get to talk about Woodrow Wilson again. Not too much. Trump is not trying to manage the post-World War II order. He's trying to kill it before it kills us. Now listen, hear me out. Clear your mind of everything you think and just hear this and let it settle just in an empty room for a second before you start putting all the other thoughts that you have in it. Just hear it out. He believes, rightly or wrongly, that the American system built by Woodrow Wilson and then again after 1945 with Bretton Woods has been captured. It was hollowed out and it was used and turned against the United States, the nation that created it. So globalization, which was supposed to spread prosperity, concentrates power. The institutions it created no longer stabilize. All they do is delay collapse because they're not looking forward anymore. And that if you wait politely while the debt explodes, while supply chains fracture, while rivals prepare, that's the important one, while rivals prepare, that's not wisdom, that's suicide. So when you think this is overwhelming, what is he doing? Think of this. Everything that you've learned since 2008 about the Tides Foundation and about Soros and about the DSA and all of the things you've learned about, that's taken us 25 years to learn about. If we would have seen them do this in 12 months, how overwhelming would it feel? Right? It would seem like it was chaos, like what the hell is happening, right? Well, we've watched the global elites prepare while we've done nothing. We have watched over the past, 25 years for sure, but it's been going on longer than this. We have watched Davos, the World Economic Forum, the UN, China, Russia, even the Saudis 3 years ago were saying we're going towards China. They have all made moves slowly over 20 years to put America in this box. The left made their moves over the last 40 years as well, with the schools, the Tides Foundation, the Muslim Brotherhood, CARE, DSA. Do you know that the Democratic Socialists of America are training 1,000 citizens for resistance in New York right now? You know our treasuries have been drained through corruption for the NGOs. We know that now. Meanwhile, what have we been doing? We've been saying somebody's got to do something to stop it. That's why everybody's so focused on the DOJ. And I'm going to get to the DOJ, especially tomorrow, but I'm going to get to the DOJ in a minute. Trump has done 20 years of work in 1 year. I don't think any president has done more, like it or not. I don't think any president has done more in 1 month or in 12 months, 1 year than Donald Trump. And you may not like it, but you need to understand it, because you know and I know we are looking at the possible end of America and the Western civilization, right? Isn't that what we're all fighting for? I was fighting for my country, but I believe Western civilization is at stake. And he is mobilizing all of the resources that he has to prepare for that. So when that big battle comes, when that thing breaks, we don't go the way of the Great Reset. Remember, that's what the Great Reset is. The Great Reset was to overwhelm the system, to destroy our borders, to get people out in the streets and everything else, and put all of this framework in, so when it did collapse, it would fall into that framework of the WEF. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. But I also believe he sees war coming on the horizon. So, let me go back to tariffs. Tariffs, in his mind, I don't believe are economic policy. They're stress tests. Who folds when access to the American markets is threatened? Look at who retaliates. Look at what's happening with Canada. Is Canada our friend? He puts a stress test out and they fold and run to the Chinese. They've exposed themselves. They think that he's so authoritarian that they'll run to the Chinese. So he has exposed the leadership of Canada as not being people who are really in for freedom, because they will run to the Chinese. The stress test of the tariffs. Who cannot survive without us? Look at peace deals in a totally different way. Let's just say the peace deals are not necessarily about harmony. They're about freeing bandwidth. Hear me out on this. It's about putting out small fires before the larger ones ignite. Look at, what was the first thing he did when he got in? He made peace in the Middle East. Can I ask you, what has been our biggest distraction over the last 40 years? It's been the Middle East, right? We're always being dragged into war into the Middle East. Somehow or another, we're always over there. He knows if we're going to be a strong country, we cannot be in the Middle East. So he makes peace in the Middle East, and he brokers it in such a deal where they're not coming to us. They now all have a piece in that deal. And so they're now responsible for it, not the United States. We're not the big boy saying, hey, get back to the table. They're at the table, and they have to hold it together so we can focus on other things. Iran, Venezuela, Greenland, these are not crazy obsessions with him. They are nodes. They're nodes of energy. They're nodes of minerals. They're nodes of currency dominance. They are nodes of missile warning, Arctic control. You know, when you look at Greenland, try this out for size. Imagine just changing this way of thinking. Global warming, global warming, global warming. The poles are melting. If the poles are melting, you have a couple of ways to go. We got to stop the poles from melting. Quick, everybody ship air conditioners up to the polar bears. Okay? We got to stop making things because we got to save the polar bears. Okay, that's one way of thinking it. Another way is saying, wait a minute, if the poles do melt, the whole world is going to reshape, and that makes the Arctic shipping lanes. Shipping lanes. That's the Middle East, only colder. He sees the future. And unlike the polite architects of multilateral management, thank you, Woodrow Wilson, he doesn't trust committees to secure the choke points in a world of scarcity. That's what we're headed for, a world of scarcity. When you are a world that is collapsed on its own weight, because I've told you, everyone is collapsing. This has never happened in world history. Everyone has abused their currency. So everyone is collapsing at once. So what does that mean? That means even if there's no war, the shipping breaks down, the supply systems break down, and you have to be self-contained. So what did he do over in Europe? The first thing he said was, you guys have to take care of yourself. And you have to stand up in your own country for your country. Don't depend on this globalism. It's not real. It's not going to happen. Now, his worldview, I started looking this up. It's not new. In fact, I mean, you can find it all the way back to the Greeks. But in America, if you look, this is more Hamilton, not Jefferson, more Hamilton and George Washington. Let me explain a couple of things. Washington and Hamilton, both of them believed, I mean, Washington used to say in his farewell address, and it was ignored for the last century, he said, alliances, don't get yourself in complicated long-term alliances. Alliances are temporary. We have all of these long-term alliances like NATO, and we're like, what the hell are we even in NATO for? What do they do for us now? It was important back then, but is it important today? That's Washington. Washington saying they are temporary. Use them, but be friends to everyone. But things are going to change. So that's what he's testing. He's testing now who is really an ally and who's not. Also, trade has to serve national strength. That's Washington and Hamilton. Debt is dangerous, especially if it's external, and industry has to be protected. Lincoln, McKinley, the American system of production before protection became a dirty word, before Woodrow Wilson. This is the belief that sovereignty precedes morality, that nations survive by strength, not speeches, that systems decay whether we acknowledge it or not. Let me take a 1-minute break and come back and tell you there are 3 kinds of leaders, and I know which kind of leader Donald Trump is. And if you start to unlock this, you will understand exactly what's going on in the world with Donald Trump.
Thank you for thinking for yourself and being part of a movement, because that's really what all of this is. If you want the full story, you want to go deeper, go to blazetv.com/Glenn. Go there right now, sign up, no interruptions, just the truth, uncensored and unfiltered. Don't just watch, take a stand. And I'll see you over there in a minute.